This is a weird question. I consider it a vocab question. I know that normally if there's a question, it's more of an ideas question, but I actually consider vocab to be styles. So yeah, they're testing the ideas in a way by asking about the tone, but we understand that tone is really a measurement of style, right? We want to pick words that fit with the overall pattern of the passage. And so when we think about vocabulary on the writing section, definition might matter. We're going to talk about that in a second. But more important, I think, is this idea of a spectrum. Words are useful in different contexts, and so we need to think of words as kind of belonging on a spectrum. They might be too slangy, too informal for us to use in an academic paper. And a word like icky, that's a thing a child says. That's not something you should be saying in your English paper in school, right? So that word is very clearly too informal. For the other three, though, it gets a little iffy, okay? So, in my opinion, the word surly is too pedantic. It's too fancy. It's too weird for just normal conversation. I want you to think about it. How often have you used that word surly in your own writing, in your own conversations? Probably not very often. Many of you may know what it means. It's a very common kind of like SAT vocabulary word. It basically means like rude. And that would be weird in this case. So yes, it's too pedantic, too fancy for this kind of writing, but it's also definitionally wrong because we're talking about food. So it's weird to talk about food as being rude. Food doesn't do that. It doesn't, talk to you, so it can't be rude. So it's just very weird to talk about it that way. And then that kind of brings us to the other two. And I would say that sinister and abysmal are both kind of in this category of academic words. I think you've probably used the word abysmal before. You usually use it to exaggerate something, but it's a word at least I thought is more common than surly. Maybe I'm a little wrong. Maybe abysmal tracks more along the spectrum like here. It's further towards pedantic. But we do need to consider things like usage. These words all mean something like bad. Okay? Right? The food is bad, right? It's icky, it's, not good. But it's weird to describe. These are different versions of the word bad, is basically what it is, right? So surly means rude, it's bad, but a person can be surly, a person can be rude, food cannot. Same thing with sinister. Sinister kind of means something more like evil, right? I think of like a Batman villain being sinister, like laughing, like ha 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 ha, kind of like the Joker, maniacally, right? So that doesn't really make sense either for a description of food. Food is not evil. It's disgusting, but it's not evil. Abysmal really just means very bad. It's a very kind of useful word. It has a lot of contexts where it might fit, and this is a context where we can use it. It's just saying the food is really, really terrible. So it fits. A lot of people get this wrong, though, because I don't think any of those words really jump off the page as being like a perfect fit. I think if I were writing this, I would just say something like, the food was leagues beyond the disgusting fare travelers were accustomed to receiving in transit, right? Like, that's kind of what I would say. But, that wasn't an option. With these vocab questions, though, most of the time we are able to just trust our instincts because we know what words fit in certain situations. And so even if you can't really define surly or abysmal or sinister, you might have a little bit of a nugget of understanding of what they mean. And so try to really just focus your mind on that and trust whatever instinct you have. Sometimes the instinct will be strong and you'll be certain. Other times a little more weak, and just do the best you can and move on. There's not a lot of ways to kind of reason this out in the moment. It's a gut thing.